Hello, I'm Jeffrey Kenny, Associate Curator with Mason Exhibitions. We're sitting here in the Gillespie Gallery of Art in the Art and Design Building at George Mason University. The current exhibition is Disrupt and Resist, a love letter to the disability community on what showing up for each other can be. The exhibition runs from January 16th through March 1st, 2024. It includes 12 artists in a diverse media, I should say art and designers, and the mediums covered are photography, text, video, fashion, graphic design, and many other mediums. And I'm joined today by our co-curators, or curatorial team. We have Jen White-Johnson and Alyssa Maru. And we all collaborated on this current version of the show, but Jen and Alyssa were the originators of the exhibition that debuted in Arlington during the fall of 2023.
I'm Jen White-Johnson. I'm Afro-Latina, disabled, and neurodivergent artist coming to you from Gillespie Gallery of Art. This is an awesome, beautiful experience to be here. So a lot of just being in this space is just a really beautiful opportunity to kind of see all disability narrative just being manifested through design, through poetry, through textiles, through patterns, through photography. And so it just means a lot. Sound, image descriptions, the embodiment of what being disabled looks like through the lens of actual disabled people. And so a lot of my work intersects with conversations on race and disability, neurodiversity, and the piece that you see behind us is actually of my 11-year-old son, and it's a photo mural that really helps to kind of culminate his autistic journey, specifically from the narrative and the love language of autistic joy. Because oftentimes what we do see in the neurodivergent community is very repressive and oppressive in terms of being able to see the lens of autism just through a very white or Eurocentric lens, but not necessarily giving or holding space for the Black autistic experience. So I just want to be able to just have fair representation of what Black autistic joy can look like. So I have zines and design posters that have been used in various protests and virtual calls to action. And so I'm just excited that I'm able to be a part of this experience where all of these artists are speaking the same language as me, especially when it comes to storytelling, but using all different kinds of mediums.
Joined here by the co-curators of the exhibition. Next to me is Alyssa Maru, our curator at Mason Exhibitions Arlington.
All right, hi. I'm Alyssa Maru, as Jeff mentioned. I help run the gallery at Arlington. Disrupt and Resist was first shown in the Arlington Gallery in the fall of 2023. It was a desire of the Exhibitions team to work through and show and celebrate disability through art and the various forms that Jeff mentioned. So when I decided to take on that great challenge and privilege, I called my good friend, distant cousin, sister, everything, Jen White-Johnson, who is an advocate and a mother and an artist and so many things that she'll tell you herself. As my first, Jen, I need to figure out how I start this. I wanted to be smart about it, and I wanted the voice to come from the community. I don't currently identify. Wow, think about forever. I don't identify as disabled, so I wanted the voice to be strong and the voice to be theirs. So I called on Jen for a roster or an entree of education into this space. And in that, I gained a co-curator because she had a strong community behind her and fantastic ideas.
And, you know, as Alyssa was saying, you know, being able to be brought in to co-curate this amazing exhibition it's an honor and it's a privilege that often really isn't given to Black women. There's a very small list of, you know, Black women, non-binary curators that are, you know, taking up space. And, you know, we're often kind of like not looked upon in leadership positions within the artist community. We're not often calling the shots. And so to be able to have this space where, you know, I can co-curate with like a fellow Black woman with a loving, you know, open and flexible, you know, group of like fellow academics, you know, whether they're identifying as disabled or not. It's just important to me as a disabled and neurodivergent artist to be able to actually feel like, you know, I can say what I want to say and I can show up like unapologetically me, and it's also not necessarily coming from a performative lens too. And it's like, well, you know, disability art is all the buzz right now, so we want to be able to kind of, you know, like hold space for the buzz, you know, the conversations on disability and accessibility. No, Alyssa just really understood that it's a language that is missing within the artist community, especially within the design community. And so again, like, I'm just so honored to kind of take up space in this, you know, just in this moment right now with so many different artists that I've known for quite some time and that I've really educated myself on. So when we began talking about who we wanted to select for the show, I was ready, like I was prepared, and I had a whole list of my comrades, like that's what I call them, like my disabled comrades who were already, you know, like waiting in the wings, like waiting for opportunities because they often don't get a chance to be present in these spaces, you know, much less within a university setting that is so accessible to students that are so ripe to embrace things that are different, things that are dynamic, things that are bold. So just really thankful.
I'm really curious how the original concept for the exhibition came about. It emphasizes joy. The subtitle is A Love Letter. So can you guys just describe the genesis of...
Yeah. So the title, Disrupt and Resist, was coming out, it was really just coming out of all of the art talks that we were having. As Jen and I were meeting with all of the artists in the show, it was about disruption, it's about breaking the narrative, about anti-ableism, you know, all words that I had to really like relearn and dig into, but it's not leaning into going in with like disability, it's disruption of, and then resisting anything else. And then Jen really gave a nice subtext to the exhibition.
Yeah, I mean, because this isn't necessarily an exhibition curated by just, well, we're just a whole bunch of non-disabled people and we just want to be able to, you know, highlight this, highlight like this disability culture without necessarily like examining exactly what we know disabled folks really want to see and what they really want to be able to like get out of it. So I felt that it was really important that each artist in each piece kind of represented an essence of disability joy, crip joy, love, and resistance, and how a lot of folks are thinking, well, disabled folks, you know, we should pity them, we should feel sorry for them, we should focus on fixing and kind of healing them, and we're basically oppressing them, and we're not necessarily realizing that, you know, we are used to working within limitations, used to working within, you know, writing our own stories and coming up with like our own ways to do things and our own ways to kind of like express our love. So why don't you just let us do that? So why don't you just let us show you how we show up for each other,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially like what can happen, what can manifest when you just let us be and let us create like through our own, beautiful, unscripted manifestation of what disability joy can be. And to me, that's like the true, definition of resistance. It's kind of like, well, let me show you what we can do without your own kind of like disposed definition of what disability culture can actually be when it's presented through through the whole space.
And I think like a sub-layer of this too was that Jen and I's hopes were also that through this show that there was some community being built. Like as I mentioned before, that there's not a lot of opportunity for people who are disabled to gather and be featured in major shows. And so the opportunity for the love within the arts community of disability for that to grow and flourish as well.
My connections to specifically neurodivergent artists and artists who are being able to kind of tell their own disabilities, disabled and neurodivergent stories through design, because it was really important that, yes, to have sculptural forms, to have, aspects of photography, but design is often complex in terms of how we can kind of understand, how do we design an actual product, or how do we design an actual text-based installation that kind of focuses on, so Iris, for instance, an amazing non-binary neurodivergent autistic human who is amazing, as a part of an academic project at UC Davis, so University of California, Davis, was able to take aspects of her thesis to take journal entries about rest, about chronic pain, and to be able to kind of create beautiful textured, layered poetry. And it was a struggle for Iris. Iris didn't always necessarily get the support that, that they needed from their, professors in terms of how are others gonna resonate with, rest and resistance and all of these conversations in terms of your poetry. But Iris was really dedicated in terms of wanting to be able to bring in as many people into these words, into these layers of thought. And then being able to kind of take those same conversations and being able to kind of articulate them through game design and interactivity, with Sky's work and Rebirth Garments, just being able to be in a show with Sky and being able to visualize and take in fashion and how, garments can itself disrupt the norm of what, the typical standard, body needs to be, clothed, and how it needs to be seen, and how it, normal bodies or, bodies with perfect curves or folks who don't have disabled bodies are the only bodies that we can embrace in editorial design, and that's what we're conditioned, and that's what we think is the perfect kind of sense of body. So with Taekyum, just again being able to kind of hold space for design, scholarship, and being able to kind of hold space for low vision, blind folks, and what sculptural elements of tactile physicality and 3D printing, what all of that can really help to embody. And Taekyum is he's a playful person, and he loves being able to create spaces of play, which is very similar to so many artists within the show, and being able to hold space for, Braille can be immersive, and Braille can be for everyone, and Braille can be a place where people don't necessarily feel isolated, but where we can specifically embrace, this other way of communicating and reading and embracing language.
My students design three-dimensional letter form and later. Hello, my name is Taekyum. I'm originally from Korea. If I remove English accent, Taekyum is my name. And I'm teaching graphic design at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And if I introduce myself, I'm a graphic designer, I'm a maker, and I'm an educator and researcher as well. Let me introduce my this embosser design here. So this is fully 3D printed embosser, and I designed it from scratch. You can see some images here. It actually went through several iterations until end up with this version, and this design is inspired by historic artifact called cylinder seals, which was invented around 3500 BC in Middle East. Maybe you have seen little historic, little cylinder-shaped artifact in the gallery, has little patterns or letters on it. When you roll it on wet clay, you can actually print it. There was the high-tech printing of the time. Especially this one is printing braille, print letters from A to Z. I actually made it to help myself to learn how to read braille with my eyes, also like practice how it feels like, and also how I can read it. Although I cannot really read braille, only my fingertip though. Also, some more things about my practice is, as I'm grounded in graphic design, I was trained as a graphic designer. I really focused on like visual communication part. However, when I was in grad school about 10 years ago, I had a retina detachment, which is thin layer in your eyeball. Retina was detached. And you can actually lose your vision if you don't get the medical treatment. So actually went through 2 surgeries, and it put me down, face down recovery. So I have to do this for 24/7, so the gas bubble in my eyeball will be support my retina. Since then, I went through some vision changes, and now I'm still dealing with some minor vision issues. Since then, it really changes my life, personally and professionally, because like how I see the world has been changed. For example, like as a designer, I love small type, but now I hate small type as well because it's really hard to read. Now actually, based on these types of work, this is kind of my practice. On top of that, I'm also teaching a new course called Graphic Design for Accessibility, which really embraces the tactility in design on top of the visual information. For today's workshop, I'm going to share some of the exercises and how actually people can embrace tactility using CAD, 3D design, and 3D printing, which can be used for rapid prototyping, and you can actually design something, get the physical outcome, and you can actually evaluate your designs and how you can actually use it. If I just want more thing, Braille is really important, which is part of ADA compliances. However, when I attend the ADA workshop and when I talk to people with vision impaired, I heard that people like only less or 10 or less or 10% or less of the people can actually read Braille, because if you lose your vision in the middle of your life, you cannot, you need to go through the rehab, and you won't be able to read the Braille as fast as other people who born blinded, because they actually went through, has more experiences. So what people do is actually, I'm not sure you have searched something on Amazon. Like if you search Braille aid, one of the bestseller is bump stickers. It has a little texture, and then you put the stickers. For example, like microwave. You don't know which one is 30 seconds, which one is start if you cannot read it. So people put the sticker on it. So for today's workshop, we're gonna design some tactile like textures during the class. Also, I brought some the other items such as vision simulator. If you put the glasses on, you can actually experience how vision impaired people see the world. So that will be the part of the workshop today.
Taekyum will be our first Visual Voices lecture February 8th.
Yes.
Also, he'll be here to do a workshop on
Yes.
tactile design.
Yes.
So.
Right, and inclusive design, like in its
Yeah.
purest
Yeah.
form,
Yeah.
and being able to see like what that actually means
Yeah.
from the creator itself,
And I see that he customized a
Yes, a disrupt
and
and
resist
Yes.
tactile imprinter. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I can't wait
Yeah.
to make my own.
I think
your design is also kind of running throughout the show. So all the colors that we see in the Gillespie Gallery were consciously based on your designs, and to kind of bring through the joy that you use, you know, the kind of color palette that expresses lightness, you know, because all the work is very different, but you know, there's a lot of text in the show, there's a lot of photography, and I think having color kind of amplify all
the color of
those.
Jim Sky is like,
Yes.
Yeah, so I just, that was one of the first things I kind of recognized when I was looking at all the work, is that it, like, since there's not painting or those kind of visual cues that we often associate with like bright effervescent, you know, but bringing it into the paint in the show, I think it unifies it too. Andy Slater, who's a blind artist from Chicago, whose work primarily exists in audio and alt text interventions. The pieces we have in the show are Invisible Ink, which concentrate on alt text descriptions of artworks that don't exist physically, but are kind of a description of something imaginary. So we're kind of taken on a journey through the text to explore these artworks, and we have to do a lot of imaginative work. And this work, I think I mentioned it before, but this idea of conceptual art and the dematerialization of the object, very much present in this, is that we exist in the proposition again, but also for Andy, this is part of his reality, that he can't access necessarily the physical, visual representation of things. So a lot of text operates in a different way. It's also his way of seeing, to a certain extent, especially artworks, right? Or photography. So, and each of these works has like a label that describes it, just like a normal gallery label would, which is like as an oil painting. So even what you're reading, you may be going off into a different place with it, and then you're reminded that this is actually a representation. So I really love the kind of layering of representation, what representation is, and how a lot of art in general is actually an operation of the mind, as meeting a sense, and
then what are we listening to when we put that?
And when we put on the headphones, we have a narrator just doing the same description, but the narrator's voice is like a radio voice, which is like very juicy and lovely, and you feel like you're like kind of in the room with this very eloquent speaker. And we could talk about Robert Andy Combs. So Robert is a wheelchair user, had a spinal cord injury from a gymnastics accident. His work is concerned with his life and existing within this disability, but also he's very frank and unapologetic about discussing sexuality within disability, beauty. His photos are incredibly beautiful in person. They're highly detailed, printed on a metallic paper that gives them a very sensual kind of sexiness. And the works that we've included in the show range from group portraits to intimate portraits to kind of stylized S&M kink portraits to fun out in the world portraits. And they kind of show the range of his experience, both kind of in a contemplative space about what he, I would say the eyes is blue of the Atlantic, kind of his relationship to water when he was a competitive athlete at one point, and now it's taken on a different characteristic as the kind of weightlessness, and but it's still the same material, but his relationship to that material or its relationship to him has changed. Two portraits kind of in woodland environments, a group portrait with his friends that he met at Fire Island, and a singular portrait that kind of play with these aspects of beauty or the desire for, in his past desire to be a model, you know, and also the carrying through of beautiful proportions and framing within his pictures that deal with like his erogenous zones, what his love language is touch. How does he seek this out? What does it mean to be a disabled body desiring in the world? And he's very frank with that. You know, there is a stigma that he finds projected towards his body, that why would he want to if he can't feel from from the shoulders down. Like, why participate? And he's saying, well, if you still want to, you want to, and you know, you can again go back into a lot of pleasure is in the mind, right? And that if you want it, you can find pleasure and ways to activate it. Olivia Brower's work. Olivia is a Canadian artist from the Toronto region, and their work is Braille-based paintings that are interviews with low sight individuals, and they're both a kind of a contemplation of what painting can provide. The artist, being of low vision, was experimenting with like, what does it mean to have a tactile experience with something that we normally position in the purely kind of retinal area of art. And these works are really interesting because they invite viewers to not only touch the painting, and they've hand-applied Braille with a dropper, so it's a very meticulous craft-based application of Braille. But then next to it, it has conductive paint on blocks that you can touch and put on the headphones, and you can follow the interview with these low-vision individuals that are depicted in the paintings on the headphones. So it's innovative in a couple ways, because it's trying to stretch the boundaries of what painting can be, but also the materials, you know, like this is like kind of a new technology augmented object, which, you know, you could imagine many different applications of this, but it's also a really interesting way to kind of close off one aspect that we expect from painting and open up a whole nother range of ideas. They've also provided some of their design work, which is in a book form called Contact, as well as some other things that kind of invite the viewer to handle touch and have a kind of aesthetic experience through touch. Kelly Gillespie's work, Under Medicated, is composed of pill bottles that she had sourced through a donation campaign, and then she takes the medication bottles, slices them on a bandsaw into these little rings, and then meticulously transforms this material into this kind of biomorphic cloud type shape. Her philosophy is that the materials that she uses are often discarded materials from society, and this somewhat mirrors the way we treat individuals with disability, as we often either marginalize or we try to keep it out of the center of our discussions. You know, pill bottles in the home are often hidden, kept away so people aren't aware of maybe the condition that someone is suffering from. But by bringing it back in, they're also expressing a kind of, the form itself is a kind of communication of community, you know, all of these things reassembling into something beautiful, even though they may have been discarded on their own. They also, you know, kind of give buoyancy, I think, just as a sculptural form. It's taking something that's definitely in our societal discussions is a heavy topic, you know, mental illness, things that require medication are often seen as downturns in life, or you know you've gone down into the medicalized world, and this kind of, I think, removes some of that stigma by turning it into something beautiful, something that anyone can walk in and appreciate.
Something that kind of weaves us all together, that we are all
we're all connected,
we're all
and we're all
connected.
part of this thing. I mean, I think even the form suggests that it could continue.
Exactly.
You know, it could envelop the whole space.
Each time is different, you said too.
Yeah.
All right, I would love to share work about Gwyneth Van Leeuwen. They were hit by a car, and so the work that we featured in Arlington and it has grown here in Gillespie are works of them moving their body in and around a traffic cone that has been manipulated. So when I started working with Gwyneth, they use they and she. I'm not being incorrect. They really like to approach their chronic pain issues with humor. You know, when you're in the doctor office all the time, you're always there. It's always like typically a very depressive mood. So her moments are very disruptive when she goes to the doctor's office, and things of leaving a zine that they've made, or in the waiting room, or taking out all of the popsicle sticks to do funny things with, blowing up the hand balloons for everyone in the but the work that we've included with the cones, Bear Witness, really go into her use of found objects. So she's found all of these displaced cones on the side of the road that have been hit, have been in the mud, and have been altered as such. And so when I called her, I'm like, what? I found a cone, and I was stalking the streets for a commandeered cone. And she's like, okay, great. And I'm like, I'm gonna put it in as a visual cue, and it will kind of help tie in. She's like, but we can't leave it this way. We can't. We have to manipulate it so that it fits in with the narrative. So we created a love letter within the cone. So there are prompts for people to leave moments of near misses, moments of frustration or joy, moments of solidarity for and with the disabled community. And in Arlington, we received so many lovely emotive moments, people sharing thank you letters, for the opportunity to sit in space. I read one to Jen. One was addressed to Jen about the opportunity to be in space and have disability and joy. So just a really great moment to have an interactive with folks that come into the gallery and experience Gordon's work. So really happy to include them, and they're again like, bring humor to something that is typically can be so dark. So really great to work with. Next, I would like to discuss Indira Allegra, who is a California-based queer Black artist who I think practices a lot of things, like site-specific movement, a lot of poetry, weaving, and texture. When we first started working with them, we were really anxious to try to incorporate this new work that they were doing called Texture, which weaves in poetry and pictures that were like on a loop, but
and performance.
Performance art, exactly. So the work that we chose is their body actually being stretched and entered in a weaving loom. So really taking in the physicality of the weaving practice, and the body positions that they put themselves in really creates distortion and maybe uncomfortability, and it's 5 series that go through, so it's like a whole weaving moment, undulating their body through an actual loom, which is really dynamic to see.
The other piece we included is a video work, which depicts Indira kind of doing a performance that is kind of a dance interpretation of receiving bad news, maybe through a diagnosis, and kind of going through the stages of acceptance or grief or denial, bargaining, whatever it may be, but she does it in kind of a fluid one-woman performance in this gown that's extremely engaging. It kind of, I like to think of it as adding a kind of punctuation to the show, partly because it's so expressive in its movement, and the pinks kind of resonate with our pink window, and it gives it a real, like, I don't know, it's maybe the one piece that deals with death directly, or maybe it's still indirect, but it's in the title, and I think it's kind of like something that may be in the background of a lot of the artists' minds, and like the desire for change,
and also agency.
Yeah.
The way that Gwen, Robert, and Indira are using themselves as this aspect, like as the subject matter, is something that it's a risk sometimes as a disabled person to say, I'm going to actually open up like the door to give you all of me, like in the work. But to me, like that's one of the ultimate acts of self-advocacy. It's like I'm telling this story like from my disabled lens. I have the power, I have the agency over my body and how it can move and how it can express and how it can take charge and how it can be in control and how it can be powerful.
Right.
I would love to introduce work by Alex Veloso, a Baltimore-based multidisciplinary artist. And when we first started talking, we decided that we were going to be commissioned. A new work was in the midst of being created, and they, drew me a diagram. And it was like, a lot of the work that we're showing here for this exhibition is rubber, silicone rubber, and the idea is that the aids that we use, so that there's a pink rubber cane that's held up by a blue acrylic stand, and the cane is wobbling to the floor. And this is to really show that the aids, the things that disabled are given to use to move their bodies and to be in motion and to support them still fail. And that was just very profound. The piece that we were working on, that they were working on over the summer to show new for the exhibition. It didn't get made, they sorry, cut that out. They were having their body was failing them over the summer, and they were like, I'm not in the space to make new art. And that was, as a curator, you have in your mind, okay, this is happening, and then it's like, absolutely, like, I love your work. I have ideas for other pieces, but I love that. Thank you for respecting your body and your time and knowing your capacity, and letting me know ahead of time, and let's work to see what we can further explore. So we included a wall-mounted piece again of silicone rubber that is undulating rubber canes that really just show the fluidity of aid. We also displayed a video of theirs called Breath Play, and in this it's a room full of balloons. It starts out that way, at least. A room full of balloons that Alex's movement in a latex suit and cane and sand on the floor. So there's moments of texture, of hearing them move around, and the goal and what they expressed in the video was that how hard movement can be and how laborious making art is, even sometimes, as we learned together with the work that we ended up showing. But so through the end, the balloons are popping, and you could hear them breathing more. You could see them moving differently and slower, or it's a lot.
So one of the pieces that I'm most proud of that is a part of this exhibition is Finnegan Shannon's work, and I've been following Finn for quite some time, and being able to see how the language of disruption has been able to evolve, and Finn is able to really take textiles and actual objects to shift them a bit, and to help us to really think about environmental accessibility and what that actually means, and what it can mean, and what it should mean. And so Finn's work is able to kind of articulate this is like the language of inaccessibility, and how a disabled voice can actually come in and change it. So with Finn being neurodivergent, and then also dealing with invisible disabilities and chronic pain, but also a designer, an illustrator, and being able to kind of marry those worlds into, you know, literal object physical manifestations, and specifically calls to action that really help to get us to pay attention and to focus in on inaccessibility. And there's a reason why a lot of Finn's work shows up in spaces, you know, like exhibitions, like museums, because, you know, Finn is really trying to, you know, hold us accountable for, well, you know, this is a very uncomfortable space and I'm expected to really engage with this artwork and these experiences, but it took me a while to get here, and there's no
Marble floor,
you know,
right here.
there's no place to sit down, there's no place where I can really sit, or there may be like one bench, and, you know, we're like literally sharing it with like, you know, 10 people, and we're waiting for these people to get up so that we can actually sit and digest and take in the artwork. And so Finn does a really amazing job of being able to, again, like, just call, like, it's just a legit call to action, a demand in terms of, you know, I'd rather be sitting, you know, sit if you agree, or, you know, it took me a while to get here, you know, I want to be able to relax. Like the bench that we're sitting on now, it says, you know, it was hard to get here.
Rest
here if you agree. And, you know, Finn, you know, is able to tackle so many different things in terms of, you know, accessibility, and we were only able to, you know, kind of bring in certain pieces, but, you know, I encourage y'all to really visit other messages that Finn has been able to create in terms of, you know, spaces that don't have elevator access, and anti-stairs lounges, and things where actually people have, where, you know, Finn's been able to create other benches that really kind of, again, help to articulate what conversations are we really holding for, like we're holding space for access, and how can we actually like outline that in plain language so that folks can really be engaged. And I feel like that is one of the ultimate acts of disruption. And I mean, the benches are sturdy, and in terms of, you know, inviting people to actually feel like this is a safe object for me to feel like I can just, I'm stable here. Like, you know, even if I have like back problems, or you know, or folks just need like a surface where they feel like stability, because sometimes soft surfaces can sometimes be uncomfortable for folks who have, you know, arthritis or all different types of things. So I feel like the ultimate act is to be able to kind of, you know, create.
About being moving, you're driving him crazy, you know.
Yeah, it's actually able. Hey, I mean.
No, I know. He's like, I can't hear you.
No, if anything, people watching this will be like, "Oh, she has ADHD."
Right. Right.
Like, we need to be able to show exactly, like, we need to show like the true representation. And even when I post things, or when artists are posting, like, they'll always say, like, one of the things that I'll say is, you know, thank y'all for accepting all of me, like, as I am. Like, I don't feel like I have to mask, or I don't feel like I have to, you know, straighten myself up a bit. Like, I know I can be fidgety, or we can be in conversation, and, you know, and I can be at a loss for words, but y'all are going to be able to usher me back into, you know, where we need to be. And to me, that's what, you know, disruption means, knowing that, like, I don't have to mask.
Well, I'm going to keep one last point on this.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking that, like, one thing I've been telling students is also, if you think about exhibition spaces,
Yeah.
which it seems like a lot of their work is where they're doing these kind of interventions.
Yeah.
The spaces themselves are usually designed with objects in mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? And people are kind of the afterthought.
Yeah.
And it, you know, I'm just thinking in my head how many times contemporary art, modern art, has come up with the new revelation of interactivity as, like, you know, like, it's groundbreaking. Every time they come up with, you know, it's groundbreaking, but creating spaces within exhibition spaces for people to gather. And it's been really an important piece of this exhibition already, is that people come in, they immediately get it, and they sit, you know, and it, you know, they spend a lot more time in the show. It's a lot more casual viewing. It's easier to talk to each other. I think, you know, just a piece of furniture has a lot of ability, because it's familiar, it's not some new object that you have to, you know, both understand and to activate, that it's kind of the basicness is part of the beauty of it, is that you understand immediately. A bench, you know, it's not a chair, it's not, you know, and I think that's really successful, and I think it anchored the exhibition at Arlington in many ways, and I think it anchors the space in a really strong way through its it's almost like it's quotidian, you know, with a message. This is the thing we all should be addressing. It's kind of underlying
Right, it
everything.
definitely, as a curator, makes you think about the experience.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
as an attendee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I want to thank you all, and I want to thank both of you for awesome work. Thank you.